Hello again, YouTube. Lovell Hawes, prior enlisted Marine, military history buff, and just overall somebody who does a lot of research. And this one is actually going to be a bit of an explanation as to why I like science fiction so much. As quite a few of you who've been watching this channel are aware, I have a degree as a drafter. And to put it to you this way, I would normally work with engineers, and we would actually and work directly with the client to basically turn what the engineers are saying and what boss man is saying and what the machinists are saying and what the client is saying and turn it into one drawing that we all know what we're on. We're basically planners. And we have to be able to speak the language of all of them. As a result, I often am lumped in the same category as the engineers, even though they do have a higher degree than me and are more specialized than I am. I just happen to know AutoCAD a little bit better than they do. Um, Along with Inventor, um, Revit, 3ds Max, 3D Civil. It's like that's a little bit more in my wheelhouse where they actually know the math and science behind what they're trying to make. But anyhow, something that is in common with all of the drafters and engineers, and this goes to the tech talk, is that we all like to draw inspiration from all over the place. It's like one of the things that's actually considered is science fiction because it is a good place where you see this hypothetical technology that doesn't exist yet. And the drafter and engineer's brains goes into, okay, if I had to work on this particular project, how would I do it? And there's one example that is very famous, the old 90s flip phone that nobody has anymore. It was the inspiration came from freaking Star Trek, the original series where Kirk had his little communicator where he flipped that thing up and goes, "Gotta beam me up?" Yeah, but that one is only one of several examples. In fact, in the Next Generation, where it had Captain Picard, the bald guy, like me, although I have a little bit more hair left than he does. But he had this thing called a data pad, and he'd tap away on that thing. You know what we call that? A tablet. where we could where one of our characters in the Next Generation could walk into their quarters and start telling the computer to do stuff and things, turn the lights on, to actually start playing music or something of that nature. Is They could even do research from their computer just by tapping away on what was at the time a ridiculously small laptop. Well, you can actually make a room like that. You set up a Google, you can set it up to lock the doors, you can tell it to turn on the lights, you can tell it to order some food. You can practically live your whole life by just saying, okay, Google, and then something else. Or you could have an Echo Dot like I do, and you could tell it, Alexa, and tell it whatever. I don't have Alexa hooked up like that. No, I don't have the money to hook her up just quite like that yet. But the point is that you can actually hook it up to where you can have it lock the doors, you can have it turn on the lights, you could have it order you some food, you could have it, you could or your food on your shopping list just by using your words. And you could also have it order any number of 100 things. You could have it activate an alarm system. You can have it. I actually just yesterday happened to see something where Alexa has the ability to connect to your thermostat, so you can actually set your thermostat and even hook it up to your phone, so that way you can set it remotely. So while it's like you could practically set up your house to be like the quarters on the Starship Enterprise. Like Jean-Luc Picard's Enterprise. Again, bald guy. And that is absolutely freaking insane. It was like Star Trek The Next Generation started in the late 80s. Gene Roddenberry passed away only a few years later in 1991. But Star Trek The Next Generation had a 7 season run, as did Deep Space Nine, as did Voyager, and all of them had the same ability. You could just walk into a room, say computer lights, lights come up. You could ask it to play some music, and it would ask you what kind of music, and you'd say, and it would come up. And you could actually ask the computer to do some research for you. Well, you can even do that. You could add, it would Alexa and Google, well, especially Google, you could actually Google something going, okay, Google. I mean, come on. Yeah, it's like, that is one of those things that makes me go, the future is nigh. Yeah, it's like, this is part of the reason why time fascinates me. Past to see how we got here, present to see where we are now, future to see where we're going. And it goes back to a little something that I maintain, that if we don't destroy ourselves, that we will usher in a golden era. Like, you won't believe what we'll be able to do in the next 20, 30 years. Like, you'll look back on the last 20 years and think that it was the Stone Age compared to where we're going. If we don't destroy ourselves, which there's a good possibility that we might do that. Which is part of the reason for the Ask Why, Explain Why's videos. So, yeah, if you happen to have the ability to do so, you can get all the little gadget and gizmos and set up your house to basically be like the Starship Enterprise. You can have an alarm, you can lock the door, you can turn on the lights, you can tell the refrigerator add something to your phone list, which will automatically update your phone on that, because so that way when you go to it, you can actually pull that list up on an app on your phone. You can control the temperature, and you can also order items to show up to your house, all with the power of your voice. Something that about 30 years ago was only in science fiction. No way that could happen, right? Well, there it is. It's right there. Granted, it's not flying the Starship Enterprise by itself yet, as like, or one of the Starfleet runabouts in Deep Space Nine. But maybe it could one day. And it was because engineers and drafters like me sat back and saw this and go, now how would I do that? Some of them scratched their heads over a long period of time. And I was like, this is what I mean. This is why one of the things that I actually certify is Dieter Van Dooncock, and I also support things like Lore Reloaded, and I also don't mind Geeks and Gamers, because we and of course the Daily Wire. We need good science fiction pop culture. And we lost that mantle in the late 90s, because the good science fiction started going up north to Canada. Then there were a lot of, it was like the height of Trek was basically the height of our science fiction. And then it went up into Canada. And there, admittedly, they had a lot of good ones. They had Stargate. They were actually doing a pretty good job with Continuum. There was quite a few of them. But now it's really difficult to find any good science fiction. So, I'm sorry, folks. The sequel trilogy is bad. Just god awful in some cases. And J.J. Abrams, what he did with the new Star Trek movies, had me cursing at the screens when it came to Star Trek Beyond. He had no understanding of Enterprise Luck, which that's going to be not even a tech talk or a why video. I mean, it might be a why video one day. It might be an ask why we can't get good science fiction. And I haven't bothered to look into anything more than one episode, anything done by Alex Kurtzman. Kurtzman Trek is suckage. I saw one episode of Star Trek Discovery and I was like, namas. That sucks. Not gonna watch anymore. And for somebody like me who really loves our science fiction, that hurts. And some of the questions that they bring up are really worth pondering over. It's like, I actually pondered over for better than for when I first saw the movie Aliens, I was 4. Well, wait, 6. 6. I actually saw Jurassic Park at 4, Aliens at 6. Both gave me nightmares, but they're actually a couple of my favorites these days. And probably about the time I was 12, I started thinking about one line of dialogue, one one scene, where they were in the atmospheric processor as for, and the team of Marines was basically had already walked into the nest, which was one dumb thing already, but that's was part of the way the story was written. And Ellen Ripley, played by Sigourney Weaver, goes, "Lieutenant, what did those pulse rifles fire?" And Lieutenant Gorman, this is the line that actually blew my mind. 10mm caseless, standard light armor piercing round. Why? And at that point I went, what does a 10mm caseless round look like? Anybody who has actually fired a rifle before knows that that does not make sense. Most of our firearms these days, unless you're dealing with muzzle loaders, have a case, have a cartridge. And that is what makes revolvers, semi-automatics, bolt actions, and even full autos, lever actions all possible. That so it's like I'm going, wait a minute, these things are full automatic but caseless. What does that look like? Whew. That baked my noodle for many, many years. My brother watches it about 15 years later. He said 4 words: electromagnetic rail gun. And I went, you genius! Oh my gosh. It's like I was racking my brain for that long and for 15 years. And here it is. He says those 4 words. Oh my gosh. So now my creative juices are flowing, and it occurred to me that the biggest problem that we have with making such a rifle is the power source. We need a power source that's small enough, reliable enough, and powerful enough that it could be a one-man portable rifle. Whew. Man, would that thing be a great firearm. Yeah, I mean, at that point, it would take the fire out of firearm, but it would still be a great gun. So, but yeah, it's like, this is what I mean. One day you might find that uh, our Marines are going to be shooting electromagnetic pulse rifles, basically Gauss rifles. And at that point, they're going to be firing projectiles at Mach 7, and it's going to tear right through existing tank armor. Like, it won't even stop for coffee on the way through. It's like, oh, hey, there's a tank. Well, it might be a tank, but there's no crew inside anymore. It would actually render tanks obsolete if we can never get the power source. That's the big problem. And I was like, even so, it's like, man, like I said, in about 20, 30 years, you wait. You won't believe what'll be coming down the pipe, because there's still geeks like myself that are tearing through Star Trek, Star Wars, that are going through Stargate, that are looking for the next evolution in that, and it's going to be looking for inspiration there, along with several other places. Just like personally, I also like to get a little bit of inspiration out of nature. And that's another good place for inspiration as well. But that's part of the reason I do the Tech Talk videos. You won't believe where we're going if we manage to do things right. And right is the key word. We need to do a way where we're not destroying ourselves. And that's part of the reason for the Ask Why. And it's like the things that I'm looking at as a history buff, I need to bring those to you. And next time when I'm doing a bit of a history lesson, I already designated that I'd be covering the Black Sheep and Pepe Boynton, but later on I'll also be covering, say, engineering disasters where guys like me got it wrong, because I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that we do get it wrong from time to time. And I mean, the History Channel has a whole series of things about that. In fact, one of the most infamous engineering disasters of the 20th century recently had an HBO series, Chernobyl. Yeah, that was fun. That was a lot of good information in that particular one. Highly recommended. But that being said, that's why I personally like looking into science fiction, because you never know where the inspiration is going to come from. You just start looking at it. It's like, okay, how would I make this happen? What am I going to do? Ignore the techno babble, but look at what these things actually do, and then figure out how you are going to make it. How would you do it if you were on this project? And that's how these things come to be. But I've been Level. You guys have been awesome. And I hope you guys continue to have a good day.